Hello friends, welcome back to Dare Me to Prosper. My name is Avery and I'm your host. This is episode 59 and I am so freaking tired. So today's episode is going to be short and sweet, and we're going to talk about something that I have obviously been feeling and thinking through, especially today. And that is how everything is energy, and what you are feeling, what you are experiencing at any given moment always has an energetic counterpoint. Clearly my brain is also not working. But basically there is an energetic side to everything. And anytime you are having a day where you feel off, or you feel not yourself, or maybe you've been going through a time where you are sad or depressed or just feeling off in general, there's always an energetic side to that where your body, your energetic field, your soul are literally communicating to you what is happening on the energetic side. And so while I today am exhausted and getting over a cold and quite honestly did not feel like recording today, instead I thought I would keep it short and sweet and just talk to you about exactly what I'm going through and kind of what goes through my mind when I'm having this sort of day. And just to keep it real, today I have one day this week where my kids actually have a full school day between snow days and 2-hour delays and teacher work days. I have had almost no time to even record at all. And the one day I do have, I'm so tired. So this is just a typical example of just like real life stuff that we encounter all the time. But when I encountered this day and realized what a rough day I was having, the first thing that my mind does is go, what is this day actually representing in my field? Like, what is happening energetically? Basically, like, what can I take from this? What experience is really happening underneath the surface? Because that's just how my mind works. And I'm just super curious. And I always like to take what's happening in my physical day-to-day world and see what is really going on beneath the surface, because a lot of times that helps me just have a better understanding and feel a little bit better about whatever crappy thing I'm experiencing in the physical. Because honestly, nothing that we feel or experience is accidental. And remember that energy always moves first and the physical always moves second. So anything that you're feeling, whether you're actually sick, whether you're just tired, it's like, yeah, maybe you didn't get a lot of sleep. Yeah, maybe you caught a virus. But before that happened, the energy moved first and the physical is always a step behind. And so there is never a circumstance that is not aligned with an energy. Because here's how it works. For example, when you get sick, even when that sickness is like viral, or it's something that you've caught from somebody else, or, you got an infection because you were already in a certain state or what have you. What's happening on the energetic side of that is you were already in an energetic state where you were a match to whatever it is that you caught. Which is not to say that you are at fault in any way, shape, or form, or that you were doing something wrong, or that any time that you are feeling sad or whatever, that you're automatically going to get sick. But what it does communicate is that there was already something happening energetically that brought you to a state where you were more aligned and therefore exposed to that energy already. But the good news is that that already works vice versa. Like if you are in a really great state energetically, you are shielded and protected from a lot of illness or just like chronic issues and what have you. And again, there's a lot more that goes into that. And there's certainly like soul contract stuff that gets into like the deeper, more serious things like cancer or life-threatening scenarios. And that's not everything as simple and surface level as what I'm describing. So I'm mostly talking about kind of like the day-to-day stuff, like a random cold or being tired or feeling sad and all of that sort of everyday thing. And this is important because a lot of people just don't pay attention to this side of it and they just try to fix whatever they're feeling instead of listening or paying attention to what's happening on the other side, which I would argue is not only more helpful, but it is more informative. And the energetic side is more of the root cause than the physical side. which I've talked about this before, but that goes directly back to things like sound healing and frequency healing and energetic healing. Because if you've ever done that sort of thing, you know that that sort of energetic healing will automatically help you with or heal the physical stuff. And that's because they're working directly with your energy, directly with your vibration, which in turn heals the physical. It's the same reason that you can heal illness, you can heal sickness energetically, because it's dealing directly with the energy side first, which is always the root of whatever you are experiencing in the physical. And so hopefully my goal with this episode is that you just leave with a new way of understanding your emotions, understanding your experience, and that you are able to see the bigger picture and how you might be able to not only have a better understanding of those days, but also have a new way to tackle what you are feeling or experiencing that is negative so that you can feel better. So let's talk about why your emotions are kind of an energetic signal, right? Because emotions are not just like a chemical reaction, and they're not just a reaction to your experiences. They're also feedback from your energetic system. So wherever your energy is, your frequency, your vibration happening in your body, again, your physical is just going to directly reflect that or mirror that, which means it's going to show you where your energy is open, where it's blocked, where it's aligned, where it's resisting. So if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling heavy, anxious, restless, numb, unmotivated, whatever, that is information about what is happening in your field and potentially what is ready to shift in your energy. But a lot of us tend to override our emotions or try to shove them down or try to look past them instead of interpreting them and processing them. And we talk about that all the time on the podcast, but processing your emotions is the one and only way to transmute them and release them out of your body. And processing your emotions, this oftentimes is what happens with like trauma or childhood wounds that you've been suppressing or that have been living in your body. A lot of times, all it takes to process it is to see it, to recognize it, to look at it, to observe it. Because once you observe it, you understand it, you acknowledge it, a lot of times those energies will automatically transmute. But they're just waiting to be seen, waiting to be recognized. When they're hidden, they cannot heal. As soon as you acknowledge and you see them, that's most of the work of transmuting something already. Because as soon as you acknowledge it, that energy can come to the surface. You acknowledging it, you putting your attention on it, brings it to the surface where it can be released. And so on the flip side, when you are disconnected from your intuition, when you are not seeing your emotions, when you're not acknowledging them, when you are hiding from them or pushing them away, all of that negative energy stays buried. It stays in your system. And when that energy is in your system, it expresses as physical discomfort or sickness or illness. And by the way, before I get into some of this, let me just throw out a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. This is not in any way or shape or form telling you not to pursue medical attention if you are in need, okay? This is just my opinion on the energetic side of illness. So let me just get that out there. So I'm going to steer away from the heavier things because I don't want this. That gets really complicated and I don't want to trigger anything regarding serious illness or make any assumptions. But suffice that all to say that when you process your emotions, when you acknowledge them, when you heal, when you treat the root cause energetically, that will in turn release a lot of physical ailment for you or protect you from being a match to that in the first place. Okay, but I don't want to just focus on like the sick side. I just kind of was using sickness as an example, as a very straightforward example as to how negative energy or experiences can manifest. But it also doesn't need to be that serious. Like there's, again, a lot of things just like sadness or feeling off or just feeling dead tired like I am today that also has a deeper meaning that can communicate something to me. And again, there's patterns too. If there's something that keeps showing up in your life over and over and over again, it's showing you how your energy is currently structured. But just because you have a repeating pattern doesn't mean you're in danger. It doesn't mean you're going to get sick. Okay, I hope I didn't like trigger any fear in you. It's just a signal that your energy hasn't reorganized in that area. Like there's disorganization, there's something that's trying to heal, that's trying to get released in your body. It doesn't mean anything like doom or gloom. Okay. And we know that. We know that we just have days that we're tired all the time. We know that we have days where we're sad or we're emotional or we're triggered or we're angry or we're irritable, right? And if you're a woman, you especially know this. But when you experience things like delays and resistance and emotional obstacles, that's feedback about where your energy is. It's asking for attention. And so when you are experiencing anything negative, even if you know from a logical, like physical place where it's coming from, like, oh, of course I'm tired because I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, or oh, of course I'm sad because I had an argument with my partner, or whatever it is, you can also heal from that or energetically kind of lift those feelings out of your body when you find the root cause. And now, do you still need to treat the physical? Yeah. Like if you're tired, take a nap, get more sleep at night. You know, if you had an argument with someone, like, yeah, communicate and work through that. It's not that you ignore the physical side. It's just understanding that it's never just physical. Your body is always translating something. Okay. So for example, low energy days are often like integration days. Like I know personally, I've been doing a ton, which again, I'm not going to be redundant, but this goes back to all that 2026 energy we've been talking about forever. But I've been going through huge transformations, huge like releasing stuff from years and years and years ago, releasing old energies, like all sorts of shifts and transformations happening personally right now. And I think a lot of you are probably also going through things like that as well. So low energy days are one example of like integration days where your body is energetically releasing things and transmuting things. And that makes your physical body tired. So your system is processing something, even if you don't know what it is, and that's going to express itself as fatigue. Or for example, emotional sensitivity happens when you are kind of raising your vibration, going to a new level of awareness, wakening up a little bit more, diving deeper into your spiritual practice. You can be emotionally sensitive because you're kind of opening your field up to more energy, essentially, a higher vibration, a new frequency. Like you have access to more. And so it's like your physical field is being opened to a whole new level, and that can come with emotional sensitivity. Or we've talked about this a lot too. It's like right before a shift, right before a big manifestation. You could be in a compression phase where you are feeling really compressed. You're feeling really a lot of obstacles in your life, or like you're being held back, or like your life gets really hard all of a sudden. That can happen because you are right initially before a big shift, a big manifestation. And all of that is your energy saying, hey, something is about to shift. Something is trying to integrate. Something is happening. Like, give us some grace. Let us rest. Let us express whatever is trying to express so that you can get to the benefit on the other side. Okay, so let's do more examples, because I feel like this is what would be helpful for me, is like, explain to me some examples of what else this could look like. If you suddenly feel exhausted, again, you might be integrating something. That's often, like, fatigue is very, very commonly your energy, like, moving around, reorganizing, shifting, changing how it operates within your body. If you feel restless, irritated, maybe anxious, your energy, again, might be kind of getting ready for some sort of movement, getting ready for some type of change, but your life hasn't caught up yet. And so that tension between the energetic or the physical, especially when it's like your energy, your mind is kind of ahead and the physical hasn't caught up yet, right? Is anybody else experiencing that? A lot of times that manifests as feeling really frustrated or restless or irritated because there's a mismatch between the energetic and the physical. And it's kind of like the physical is being pulled ahead, like it hasn't caught up, and it's being kind of pushed forward because you energetically have moved faster than the physical could manifest. Okay. If you feel numb, it might mean that you're kind of in protection mode. Your system is trying to protect you from some sort of unwanted energy or from feeling overwhelmed. And so it kind of like temporarily closes off, and that might leave you feeling numb. And there's so much more to this, but again, I'm trying to keep this episode not too long. If you are feeling triggered or angry, that is often like a very common sign of like a wound within your energy, like something that needs to be seen, something that needs to be healed. Like you see this a lot if, for example, also if somebody is feeling a lot of shame. First, they will often feel angry. Like if you say something and somebody gets super triggered, okay? I've used this example before, not to like dog men, but this is like a common thing that we see in men because, historically, men, for all their emotional issues that tend to come up a lot, especially like in romantic relationships, historically, men have not been socially allowed to address their emotions and their feelings. Or they grew up in an environment where they were really like shamed. There's more of a social pressure on men to like be a man and man up and, do this and do that. And a lot of times, one of the ways that can manifest, it can manifest a lot of different ways depending on the person and the situation. One of the ways that can manifest, which I believe is quite common, is for men to grow up in an environment where they feel a lot of shame, okay? And that shame wound oftentimes is something that they don't want to face. They either just are emotionally very immature and just refuse to take accountability or refuse to look at it because it's hard and they just don't want to. Or B, the wound is just so sensitive, they kind of like refuse to look at it because it hurts. But because they are refusing to look at that emotion, what gets triggered instead is anger. Because the anger is kind of like a cover up for the shame underneath that is basically a wound that has not been transmuted, it has not been healed, it has not been acknowledged. And so instead of healing the root cause, the shame that's underneath, they want to protect that and they spit anger instead. And so when someone is really reactive, it is oftentimes a signal that there's something underneath that has not been healed. Okay, and so we can reflect on that ourselves. Like if we are reactive to something, if there's something that often really triggers us, even if it's something that feels very valid, like your kids are triggering you to anger because like you're really overwhelmed. Is that valid to feel? Absolutely. But is it also pointing to something underneath that still isn't quite processed or that wants to be acknowledged, that wants to be seen? Yeah. And so that's part of doing that internal work so that you can continue to, evolve spiritually. Okay. And so to move on from examples, something that's really important to understand and why you definitely don't want to ignore, these emotions that come up or the days when you're tired or the days when you're frustrated or what have you. All of these emotions or feelings or experiences that you have, how you handle them affects what you manifest and what timeline you are on. Especially now, not everything has to be dealt with. Like if you are feeling tired, that's more of just a signal, not something that you need to be like, you're not allowed to be tired. You need to fix this. That doesn't need to be fixed. However, there are things, again, like if you're feeling triggered or if you have a pattern of an emotion that keeps coming up over and over again, that's more of a signal that there's something happening underneath that does need to be dealt with. And so when you listen to your energy instead of overriding it, you can stop working against yourself, basically. And that's when you can actually manifest. That's actually when you can be aligned to a higher timeline. Because you cannot raise your frequency, you cannot benefit from a higher, more aligned energy if you are refusing to deal with the energetic piece. And so there's a big misconception that, you have to be happy all the time to be aligned, or you have to feel good all the time or positive all the time in order to be like on a positive trajectory or, a high frequency. And that's not true. Part of, being aligned, part of spiritual evolving, part of, getting to that higher vibration as your baseline is transmuting this sort of stuff. And so, but the healthy way to look at it is, okay, this is popping up. I'm going to look at, understand, acknowledge what's happening beneath the surface. And if it's something that needs to be transmuted, I'll transmute it. I'll acknowledge it. I'll work through it. I'll process it. Or it might just be something like, yeah, I'm really tired, or, yeah, I'm just feeling really off, or like I've been hitting a lot of obstacles lately. You don't necessarily need to transmute that, but if you can understand it, you will feel better because you will know like, okay, at least I understand, if I'm sick. Again, to go back to sickness, again, it doesn't always mean there's something that like is a buried emotion. It could also be that you're just transmuting something and that thing needed to be expressed. So again, yeah, you might be temporarily in a lower vibration, but it's because your body had to match what you were expressing. And then once that is released and out of your body, you're kind of freed up. It's like a balloon. Once whatever was heavy, whatever was holding it down is released, the balloon can float upward, okay? It's kind of like that in your body. Like once you can release these blocks, these weights, these negative emotions that are holding you down, you get to rise automatically. And the more that you acknowledge whatever it is, or transmute something that needs to be transmuted, or just continue spiritually evolving, the faster your timeline responds to you. Awareness will speed up your reality. It will speed up your manifestations. Because automatically, the more aware you are, the more knowledge and understanding you have, the more aligned you become. And the more aligned you become, the faster your reality will respond to you. And speaking of, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because, again, I'm not feeling well. And so I spent a lot of this morning like laying down, and now I'm losing some time before I have to go get my kids from school, the one day that they have a full school day. But, the point of this episode is, again, just to like have you be aware of the physical side, the energetic side of everything that you experience, everything that you feel in your body, or every experience that you have, everything that you go through, there's always an energetic side. There is nothing, literally nothing, that you experience that doesn't have an energetic component to it. And it's always communicating something to you that is happening on the energetic side or underneath the surface. And it's not always bad. It doesn't always have to be, again, something that has to be processed or something that you've been avoiding. A lot of times it's just something that maybe you have already processed or you're already dealing with, and now it is being released out of your body. And as it releases, it's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel good. But if you allow it to process and you understand what's happening, then again, once that is all released, you get to then you're freed up to be more aligned, to raise that frequency and vibration. And so really the most important thing is for you to kind of just reflect. And when you're having an off day, when you're having a day when you don't feel good, when you're triggered, and angry, or just any time that you feel discomfort or something is going on that doesn't feel good, the best thing you can do is just reflect and go, what am I feeling right now? And is this a pattern, or is this just like an occasional day that I have? Is this something that needs to be dealt with? Is there something happening underneath the surface? Or maybe I'm going through a phase where I know I'm transmuting a lot of energy. I know that I am in the process of transformation, and this is most likely just, the side effect of that being released. And so hopefully this is encouraging, because your body, your frequency is always communicating something to you. And that communication means that you have authority, you have power, you have options, you have choices that you can take action on, or at the very least understand what's happening, which puts you in the seat of authority. It puts you in a place where you actually have some control and some agency over your life. Because again, like the most aligned place to be is fully understanding that you are a co-creator of your reality. You are a co-creator with Source, with God, of your life. And the more that you understand that, the more you have control over it. A lot of times I use Jesus as an example of this. And as you probably know, like I'm a deconstructed ex-pastor's wife, ex-wife of a pastor. And so it wasn't until I really started deconstructing Christianity and started studying like who Jesus actually was and who he really was, is when I began to understand like that one of Jesus's like main messages to the people of that time, and quite honestly to us now, like the message still all these years later, is that you are one with Source, you are one with God, and that you are a co-creator of your reality. And part of understanding that is recognizing that when you understand the energetic side, you recognize how much power you have, how much authority you have, and how powerful you are to co-create that reality. And moving from a place of, oh, this is happening to me, of, oh, I have authority. And by changing my energy, my vibration, of transmuting my emotions, I have so much more power over my life than I might think. Which goes back to the Patreon episode that I just did recently on like rewriting your soul contract. Again, that whole dynamic of rewriting your soul contract is understanding that you are a co-creator, that you have agency over your own life, including the soul contract that you made before you came here. Anyway, my personal perspective, take it or leave it. But just remember that you are not a victim to your circumstances and that you do have a lot of control over the things that are happening in your life. And that takes practice to understand, and it takes a lot of work and transmuting and all of that. But that's part of your reason of being here on earth, and it's part of having a human experience. But kind of the everyday takeaway of this episode is just remembering that there's inner signals that are always happening that are communicating something to you on the outside, and that, knowing that and transmuting that and recognizing that is going to lead you to being more of a match to the things that you want to manifest and the timeline that you want to be on. And okay, already, even not feeling well, I've talked too much and made this episode longer than I intended, but I hope it was helpful. Thank you always for being here. I appreciate you. Don't forget to leave a review if this episode was helpful to you at all in any way, shape, or form. I would really appreciate a review. It goes a long way. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye.